Okay, welcome back to the second episode of the Builder's Block podcast. I'm Modify. My guest this week is Charlie Savage, also known as Shunt Trip, the wizard of the synthesizer sorcery, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about your background in creativity and creating music, I believe.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, first iteration of creating music that I can recall is my dad actually had this miracle piano system, is what it was called. Is for his old Macintosh, so it had the floppy disk and everything that he could connect to the computer and learn how to play piano. I didn't use any of that. I just plugged it into the power and I turned it on, and I just started messing around with just all the keys. It's like my parents had a piano, growing up, but I never played it. But being able to play the old crappy harpsichord or marimba sounds and stuff like that this had was a lot of fun. And I think I was about 10 at the time that I started doing this. So I was just I just played around with a lot of the chords. I didn't know scales or anything at that point in time, so I just kind of figured out what sounded good to me, and sonically, that was my first dive into that world, trying to figure out what worked for me. After that, moved on a little bit. There was a program that my dad had on a computer at a later date called Sonic Foundry's Acid, and it was basically a loop station, loop-based music production. So it basically had all these clips of other people making music that you could just arrange and chop and screw in any certain way. So that's where I first started thinking what if I actually did my own music, had me producing these sounds and me doing these loops instead of using other people's stuff. So eventually it moved on to, I asked for Christmas for an MC303 groove box. I did a little bit of research and found this is kind of a loop sequencer that I could just basically take these sounds that were on there and structure them in a certain way, so I could actually make my own beats and modify the different waveforms that were going through it as well. So that's kind of where I really started getting into my own music. This was probably around junior year of high school or so, and I just had a whole bunch of fun with that. But nice. I took a lot of inspiration, a lot of these sounds from different video games that I played. So I've been playing video games since I was so little, I can't even remember. Just having those sounds and whatnot in my head, being able to recreate those was super awesome.
Nice. So was there a particular game? Most of your music, y'all haven't heard it yet, but you will. It'll be linked and everything. Most of it's kind of got that 8-bit chiptune style to it. So was there a specific gaming score from NES or Super NES that kind of originally influenced you? That's
a really good question. I love Nintendo music, just straight up Nintendo Entertainment System, released 1985 here in America. But pretty much a lot of the Mega Man games had really great themes. Mega Man 2 is probably one of the best Mega Mans in terms of the soundtrack.
I would agree with that. All of the Mega Man games were incredible.
Yeah,
on the soundtracks.
Capcom, the company, just did a great soundtrack for whatever games they had. Whether it was Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers through Mega Man through Bionic Commando had a
Rescue Rangers was such a good game. I hate to interrupt you, but yeah, that was such an incredible game, and it was Capcom as well,
yeah,
right?
Most definitely.
Side scrollers, man.
Yeah, side scroller. You could play 2-player co-op, and just I used to pick my brother up and throw him off cliffs, and we used to throw hands with that game because we were pretty bad rivals. But it was good. But yeah, a lot of the Capcom games, and there was this old game called Wizards and Warriors.
Oh yeah.
I love that. That was actually the first video game theme that I covered and did in my own little Shunt Trip style, which actually was, I think it was the third song I ever recorded on my Groovebox.
Nice.
One of the first 3 songs that I recorded, so it's got a special place in my heart, that game and that track too. So I might recreate it here soon.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. So the MC303 was the first piece of equipment you had.
Yeah.
take me through the process of how you put all of your arrangements together within that device.
With the Groove Box, it was like all the sounds were just built onto it, so I didn't have to like sample or record anything else after that. But with the Groove Box, it started a lot with the drums is what kind of like inspired a lot of the other stuff that happened with the track. It was really simple. Like there were like 8 different drum kits that you could select from, and all of them had like a certain set. You couldn't like, switch them out or anything like that. So you're kind of stuck with that kit for that track. So it started with those, and like they were kind of a little rinky-dink, kind of thinner sounding drums, but it had some power to it. Certain tracks did, at least. With that, like basically you had your drums, and you can mute out like any of the different parts, like bass drum, hi-hat, snare drum. You could bring those in and out whenever you wanted to. And you had room for 7 other parts, whether they were like more drum, like another drum part, or instruments. And you could easily mute those and select those, and figure out what kind of sound wave you wanted to use with that as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So moving on past that, I know you had a micro Korg at one point. I believe when I first met you, went back in like 2008. I think that's what you were rocking, was like the micro Korg. And did you have like with the 505 or 404? Like you had the 2 groove boxes.
Yes.
Running it with the synthesizer, right?
Right. Yeah. Basically, the 2 groove boxes were talking to each other through MIDI, and basically I would switch between different tracks between the 2 groove boxes, so I could easily seamlessly move from one song to the next, whereas with one groove box you definitely couldn't do that. And the micro Korg was definitely my the little bit more creative, improvisational kind of part of that setup, which is a lot of fun. There was a drum machine that I picked up from you once, the TR-08 or something like that.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Little sampler kind of thing, which was a lot of fun. And for a while I had I forget what it was called, but there was like another piece of equipment that actually had like sampling capabilities, and that I messed with some, actual files. That was short-lived though, because it wasn't that flexible for live production.
Yeah,
which
you're
is my style.
You're not much of a sampler. You're more of a live sequencer kind of guy, right?
Yeah. I've dabbled with a little bit of sampling, and I could find myself, or I found myself actually, just like spending way too much time just like editing this wave file, just trying to get like the right in and out points for the files. It got to be too much. Like, I wanted to be creating, not like editing so much.
So you play your electronic setup as more of an instrument of composing.
Yes.
Than some digital artists just kind of do what you're doing, or what you're talking about, exactly what you're talking about, like kind of creating the samples, putting them into place instead of just performing it live.
Yes. There's room and a place for like those who want to like do that arrangement style. But me, I just like kind of want to put things in place and then bring them to life. I want to just kind of like play them and have my brain figure out where to go to next, rather than have it predetermined, more or less.
So cool. So how do you write your music?
A lot of the times I just get like some inspiration. Like I'm either, in the shower and I'm like beatboxing a certain beat, or I'm driving in my car and with no radio, and I just like hear like this one melody that I just want to kind of put onto my equipment now, which I have like a Korg Electribe, which is super cool, which is like, it's double the power of one of those groove boxes by far. So one of these is just easily enough to satisfy me in terms of the production level. But once I have like these ideas or like a certain inspiration, that's when I sit down in my equipment and I try and transpose that the best that I can. I'm not that musically educated. I started 6th grade in band, played trombone for the longest time. And that's where I learned like the scales and like progression and stuff like that. But in terms of like music theory so much, like I'm a little lacking.
So you play by ear then?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I learned too.
Most definitely. Yeah, back with that Miracle piano, just like finding chords. It's like, hey, all these white keys sound really good together, or I don't play this one white key and replace it with this one black key. So that's kind of how I learned, in terms of my ear, what sounded good.
I think that's one of the coolest things about being an untrained musician, is being able to figure out what sounds good on your own.
Right.
It's like making a sandwich. You put all the ingredients on there and you get a different flavor every time. But it's like, I don't know if I like this kind of cheese. I don't know if I like this kind of vegetable. And you just put it all in there, and then it's discovery, and it's constant learning and growth as an artist. I think that's pretty cool.
I like that parallel. That's really cool. Like, I know how to make a pastrami sandwich, like on rye, but I hate that kind of stuff. I might make a good sandwich, but I'm not going to eat it, so...
But you can make a good sandwich that someone else might like, right?
Yes.
It's like your music. You might make a beat that you think is trash, but someone else is like, nah, man, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You might want to, do something with that.
Yeah.
And you're like, maybe I should try pastrami. Maybe I will like it if I really give it a chance. It's funny, man. I've always had drawn parallels between creativity and cooking because most of creativity, it seems like it happens in layers.
Yes.
Painting happens in layers. Making beats happens in layers or levels,
Right.
like painting, doing digital art in Photoshop. It's all about layers. But it's the same. It's the same thing with cooking. You just throw all this shit in a pot and it tastes good or it doesn't. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's trial and error, and that's how you learn and how you figure everything out.
And it really shines whenever you have your own style that works well for you as well.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. So you just put out 2 albums on Spotify. I know you have a lot more music than that, right?
Tons
You've been
more.
doing this for years.
Yeah.
Like, I have a Shunt Trip CD from probably 2008, and it's scratched up bad. It hardly plays, but it was the RIP Shunt Trip.
Yes.
Did you remember that one?
Yeah.
God, that one was really good. Do you have any of those files left?
I have some files on my laptop, and I've definitely spread my seed around around the country. So there's definitely like old DJ Cabbage CDs that are out there. And
is that where the Doom Cabbage?
That's kind of where Doom Cabbage came from. Like, I adopted Cabbage as like kind of like a humbling moniker, where it's like I was playing online video games and I changed my name to Cabbage whenever I stunk. So,
so that's how that name.
Yeah, kind of like my own little personal moniker. So so Doom Cabbage came from that. Like before I really thought better of calling myself a DJ. So I changed my name to Shunt Trip after that. I actually found in my dad's laboratory in high school, there's like a little Shunt Trip lever that you could pull. Which looked like a fire alarm, but it just basically just cut off all the electricity to that circuit. And so whenever I saw that and actually figured out what that meant, I really kind of liked that idea of like having something like overloaded or something being stuck in like kind of a loop that you needed to like pull the power, like to pull the Shunt Trip more or less.
Yeah.
So
chill out.
Yeah, that's always given me like a little bit of pause. It's just like, because I've found myself, I can get like hyper focused on a lot of stuff. And so if I just like kind of chill out, take a step back, cut myself from the loop, it kind of paints a better picture for me. I get to see like the larger scale of things.
Yeah, and I would say that about your music as well. It's fairly chill. It doesn't get too fast or too energetic,
right?
But it has an atmosphere all of its own, and it does move. It is very dynamic. The way you push things in and out of your selections. So, how many different parts are moving at one time in your music, would you say?
Well, that's a really good question. It varies from song to song because some of them have like a little bit more drum-centered like progression, whereas others have like actually like 2 different musical parts that I kind of subdivide. Normally there's like with a thicker, lusher song, there's at least like, I want to say 12 to 13 parts playing. And at max, like probably 15 or 16, just depending on how many drum pieces I have set up. And, the different atmospheric like background sounds I could do as well. But yeah,
Nice.
like at a time, there's at least like 8 different sounds that are like coming from the Electribe at a time. And like there's always like the delays and like the chorus effects and everything that it adds that other level of those layers, which is really fun.
I've also noticed how your music, I've noticed how you can take a track of yours and perform it live anywhere from a couple of minutes to several minutes. And it's kind of through all those different patterns that you have that you can mix in and out of each other, that you're able to do that, right?
Yes.
So do you also have the ability to like mix like a song that has these 16-ish arrangements inside of it into another one? Like, do you have the capability to go from like one pattern or song into another one using the previous?
Well, with how the
pieces?
Electribe works right now, that's not totally possible. I could do like how I did with my groove boxes in past, just purchase another Electribe and just like have those talk to each other and have this one stop while I have this the second Electribe's tune still going, and while I bring up another one on the original Electribe.
So when you perform live, is there a point in which you have to stop to go to the next track?
Yeah.
There's no way to seamlessly do that yet with what you've got.
Presently, no. That was one thing that I really liked about the dual groove box setup was because I could, mix and match a lot of different songs and a lot of different parts in a lot of different ways. This one, however, since it has like more power to it, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on like these single songs, and that's always been like a little bit discouraging as like an electronic producer in this area at least, is because whenever people hear you make electronic music, they're like, oh, okay, so you want to play this club and like you want to play like 2 hours straight through, and it's like,
Yeah.
I can't do that, and not necessarily. Not only can I not do it, part of me doesn't want to do it as well. Like I want to kind of like play an individual song and let that have a starting and a stopping point.
You'd be amazed how many DJs or turntablists, even people using CDs and stuff now, feel the same way. Like they want to, even though they're playing other people's songs, they still want to arrange them in their own way and make it creative in their eyes and their ear. But clubs kind of aren't always looking for that, unfortunately. But the cool thing about the way you market yourself and promote yourself is that you're an artist, you're not a DJ. So hopefully moving forward, that's not what would be asked of you. Like, hey, do you want to do a 2-hour set? Well, no, I'm not a mix club DJ.
Yeah.
I'm Shunt Trip, and this is kind of what I do. I hit stop. I pulled the Shunt Trip. You know what I'm saying? It's in my name.
Yeah. You know. But yeah, like, no, that's one thing that I'm super excited about, having these 2 new albums that have been released. Like, there's like 7 tracks on each of them, and like each of them have like kind of like a different, like a singular style to each of these songs. Some of them might have like, a couple of traits that they share. But just for me going forward, like I haven't recorded music in like over 5 years. I'm just a naturally lazy person. That's one of my faults. I'm filled with sloth. But with my buddy Ryan, who I'm doing a podcast with, and who I've known for a long time, he's hung out in the Shunt Barn for a couple of times, few at least. He's helped me start recording more of my music because even though I haven't recorded in the past 5 years plus, I've still been making music. I've been creating this entire time. So to have an outlet and get these songs out is super cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because I'm tired of having to listen to your music on SoundCloud all the time. So I'm so excited now that I can put it on Spotify, play it wherever I want because I've got premium shit. So it's amazing.
It's legit.
I'm very excited that you're on that platform now, and iTunes as well, and I believe a couple more. And you use DistroKid, right, to get that out?
So pretty much a lot of music services out there, you'll be able to find me if you just search Shunt Trip. Which is awesome.
Talking about the Shunt Barn, I don't think many people would know what that is. Explain what the Shunt Barn is.
The Shunt Barn is a external building that I have at my present house, which is powered. And basically, we've set up a desk, and there's like a couple chairs in there, and it's basically like my old music studio that I just would sit and like play, invite so many people over, and we just like sit around, drink beers, smoke cigarettes while I'm just like playing these tunes, and like we get ideas, like we bounce ideas from each other, and there were actually a couple nights where I was teaching people how to use the groove boxes. So,
nice.
Yeah, which was really cool because then I got to hear what they could do with the stuff, which gave me a little bit more freedom to play on my mic or Korg, or like, hey, you set up these beats, you arrange these beats how you want to, and I'll counter with this sweet synth lead or something. So
how did you like that, teaching or instructing?
It was neat. It actually gave me like a somewhat of an outsider's perspective on these instruments, whereas I'd been super intimate with them before. So it gave me a little bit more respect, a little bit more admiration for what this machine was able to do, what they were capable of doing. And it also helped me see the limitations, like the restrictions of the certain hardware as well. Mm-hmm. Which, if you know where your limitations are, where your restrictions are, which rules you can break.
Exactly.
So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was really cool teaching a lot of people, and being able to share that musical vigor in the Shunt Barn. So.
Yeah, I always enjoyed my time over there. That's cool that I didn't know that you had done that you had kind of like a beat instruction session with people like that. That's kind of what we're wanting to do with the Builder's Block show and tell, is have it be like a night for beat producers to come, even if they've got it on their cell phones, to just line in, play some stuff like, hey, this is something I've been working on, and share it with other people, meet other artists. And also, we'd like to have a selection or a session of it where it's instructional. And we could maybe have, beat machine workstations set up and like show people how to do it, show and tell, what I'm saying? Like give them instructions, because I personally never had anything like that. It's all been discovery for me, which is really great. And honestly,
fun, yeah.
like the greatest part of being an artist is the discovery part. But at the same time, to share your knowledge of things, I think, is so valuable.
Yeah.
And to be able to give that to other people, for me personally, it's a very like heartwarming experience. It's like so rewarding. I can't really explain it.
It does feel really good to do that. So
yeah. And speaking of Builder's Block show and tell, we're doing an event here at the Bird in the Book tomorrow, Saturday, the Builder's Block show and tell, featuring Shunt Trip. So this is going to be one of the first times he's played out in quite a while, I believe.
Yeah, the last time I actually did play out was in this very building, back when it was a Blue Tick Brewery.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a hot minute or two, but I can't wait to play out for sure.
I'm really excited. It's going to be a cool event. We're going to open it up. Sir Wood's brother from the Good Guy Collective and myself, Modified, just playing some beats that we're working on and kind of talking about them a little bit, show and tell,
Yeah.
And then the best part of the night is going to be the feature. It's going to be Shunt Trip. We're going to give you like as much time as you want to do your thing and all of that. So what can we expect from you on Saturday, man?
You can expect to hear a few of the tracks that I have on Spotify, but in a different vein. Because every time I play a track, it's always a different experience. Mm-hmm. So, and depending on the energy of the crowd and how I feel that night, we'll see where that goes. But there's going to be there's still a few tracks that I actually made this past week that haven't gotten recorded, and I can't wait to share those out as well. So it's just going to be head bobbing good time.
So new shit.
New stuff for sure, and I'm gonna
new stuff.
Yeah, there's gonna be a couple revisitations of some older Groovebox tracks as well, which I'm excited to break through. Like
nice.
Number 25. There's a little bit of number 25 in the works.
Oh man, I love number 25. That's gonna be great, man. I'm real excited. So how could people connect with you or follow you on social media, your music, anything like that?
The best place to find fresh and new stuff from Shunt Trip is going to be on Instagram. My handle is Doomcabbage, DoomCabbage, no spaces. But you can also search for Shunt Trip on Facebook. I post updates on there, and as well on Twitter, Shunt_Trip. On that is my Twitter handle. And as always, you can search any music service like Spotify, Apple Music. I'm on both, all the big hitters for Shunt Trip. So
nice, excellent. So are you going to be having any new releases coming up, or are you kind of going to keep seeing how these two go? Because I know you've got tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah, like in addition to like these 14 tracks that are out right now, I have easily at least another 50 or so that are on the Electribe that are just waiting to get out. I'll flesh some of them out a little bit, but some of them are just ready and raring to go. Yeah, there's
tons.
There's
tons
of stuff, and I'm kind of waiting to see where these two albums will go, seeing like what the streams are looking like, and right now I'm looking for a house right now too. I'm doing the house hunting, so there's that. So that's kind of occupying my time.
Are you going to relocate the shunt barn? You don't own that, so you'll need to get your own new shunt barn.
There might be an outside storage that has power out there that might have the rebirth of the shunt barn.
Oh, that's so exciting!
I'm quite excited about that as well. Yeah,
evolution of the shunt barn. You also have a podcast of
yes,
your own, I
most
believe.
Definitely,
you
yeah.
and your friend Ryan.
Me,
My
Ryan,
friend Ryan also.
and Adam over in Texas. Like, we've been running a Blown to Bits podcast, which is just like a 20-25 minute podcast that we talk about just video games and nerdy stuff about, and it's a good way to for us to revisit like some old video games that we can talk about, or talk about new stuff that's coming up, or they have kids, they like to talk about their kids from time to time, and I'll talk about my cats if I feel out of place.
Cool, man. There it is. Well, how could they follow that? And subscribe on YouTube?
YouTube,
else?
We have a YouTube channel, Blown to Bits Podcast, as well as you can find us on Spotify or Anchor or a lot of other places. Just search Blown to Bits, and you'll find either my smiling mug on that or Ryan's, or a couple arcade cabinets in the background too. So,
excellent. Charlie, thanks for coming by the Builder's Block podcast, also known as Shunt Trip. Charlie, Shunt Trip. Going to be performing here tomorrow at the Bird in the Book at the Builder's Block Show and Tell feature act. I'm very excited about it. Make sure you come out and check it out. Make sure you check out his music because it's great. I can vouch for it. And I think that's all we got, man. So I'll see you next time.
A pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
Cause I am. I got the beat up, doing the bang like boom, with the feet up, hanging in my room. It's not the reefer.